Heart attacks, strokes, ischemic heart disease, atherosclerosis, so many things can happen to our cardiovascular system. Unfortunately, cardiovascular diseases now rank first in the world in terms of mortality and morbidity. Heart attacks are no longer just for the elderly. Strokes are affecting younger people, and both hemorrhagic and ischemic strokes are becoming more common among the young. I still remember back in the late 1990s and early 2000s, during one of our forensic medicine classes, they brought in a man with an athletic build, a real handsome guy. He died of a heart attack, and when they performed the autopsy, there was a huge area of infarction, meaning a part of the heart muscle had died. That experience made an incredible impression on me at the time, serious, profound. It was a deeply impactful moment for me. And I realized that you have to keep an eye on your heart and take care of it from a very early age. Especially if you have any predispositions, for example, to obesity, then you really need to pay close attention to what you eat and how you eat. You should also include so-called superfoods in your diet, foods that contain a large amount of substances that help our heart muscle function. Please be absolutely sure to watch this video until the very end, because at the conclusion, I will reveal the single most beneficial fruit for our heart's health. To start our list, the first thing you need to incorporate into your diet is fresh green broccoli. Broccoli. Why broccoli? Well, first of all, it's called a food with negative calories, meaning that your body supposedly spends more energy digesting it than the calories it contains.
That's impossible.
That's not entirely true. It can't have negative calories. Of course, it contains kilocalories, but it does contain an interesting substance, a natural antioxidant called quercetin. An antioxidant is something that prevents oxidative stress in our cells. That's why, if you want your heart to be healthy, broccoli must be included in your diet. Well, almost every... No, steaming is not suitable at all. Boiling is perfectly fine. Raw is also fine, though macron, but definitely not fried. If it has been ultra-frozen for a period, then there is absolutely nothing alive left inside it.
What is dead may never die.
Frozen foods are those that have undergone temperature processing down to -80 degrees. And if you store vegetables and fruits for the winter in a regular freezer, there's nothing wrong with that. If you then thaw them and eat them, that's fine too. In my family, it's actually customary to make such preparations for the winter. We freeze fruits and berries from our own garden. If you have this tradition too, do the same and give this video a like. The second product is an amazing fruit, grapefruit. Israeli scientists conducted a study where they took 57 people and divided them into 3 groups. The first group, they didn't feed grapefruit to the first group, gave regular grapefruit to the second group and red grapefruit to the third group. And what does separate mean? There is a variety. After some time, they observed that people who included grapefruit in their daily diet had reduced levels of low-density lipoproteins. In other words, the so-called bad cholesterol in the blood decreased. Many have heard about it. Your cholesterol is high. Yes, so what do we do about it? Now, regarding low-density lipoproteins, if it were high-density lipoproteins, both types are necessary for us. But when their balance is disrupted, when there is too much low-density lipoprotein, they start to form those very plaques that lead to clogged blood vessels, to atherosclerosis. You know, this can be compared to something... In general, we need cholesterol to repair our blood vessels. Always, constant breakdowns occur and cholesterol is involved. It comes in, high-density lipoproteins come in, and there are also low-density ones. As much as is needed, yes, in the right ratio, and that hole gets patched up. So it's like putting in a brick and pouring in the mortar. Now imagine that when there's an excessive amount of low-density lipoproteins, your house, your blood vessels, through which our blood flows, will be built from poor quality materials. And that's exactly what grapefruit does. It reduces the amount of these very low-density lipoproteins, which are not very good for building our blood vessels. But there is one huge but here that cannot be ignored. Grapefruit can enhance or reduce the effects of a large number of medications, such as statins, anti-diabetic drugs, even insulin, right? Medications aimed at regulating heart function and antihypertensive drugs that lower blood pressure. Therefore, if you regularly take pills, be sure to consult your doctor to find out whether you can consume grapefruit. And by the way, on my own channel, on my Telegram channel, I will definitely post a review article where I will talk about how grapefruit interacts with various medications. So follow the link in the description below this video. The third thing you need to include in your diet is potatoes. And not just any potatoes, but potatoes cooked in their skins. Please boil them, bake them, do whatever you like with them. But please do not remove the skin. When you peel potatoes, you remove the most valuable part. Potatoes contain dietary fiber, manganese, potassium, a bunch of trace elements, phosphorus, zinc, and potato skins are especially rich in potassium. You throw all that away and are left with just starch, which is a fast digesting carbohydrate. Potato, I don't know, pancakes made from potato peels. You can actually make a dish like that. By the way, during the war, people made it a lot, specifically from potato peels, and people were fine. Children born during or after the war, a large number of them have lived long lives. So, for example, I see people coming to my office who were born in the 1930s. They didn't have sugar, they ate potato pancakes, went hungry, drank water, and yet, even now, many of them live to a very old age. Someone might ask me, but what about this? Potatoes contain toxins, don't they?
Really?
I agree. If a potato is green, if it has turned green, you need to throw it out because that green potato contains an excessive toxic amount of a substance called solanine or saponin from the saponin family. But you know what's most interesting? That this solanine is actually the most powerful natural anti-parasitic substance. The fourth superfood is lettuce leaves, spinach and cabbage. What are their benefits? First of all, they are excellent food for our microflora, our microbiota, our symbiotic microbiota in the gut. Secondly, cabbage, especially sauerkraut, contains a huge amount of substances, minerals and vitamins. Vitamins A, K, B group and C. The amount of vitamin C there is just off the charts. And most importantly, all the foods I mentioned today contain potassium, which we lack. Potassium is the substance that is found inside the cell. That is, potassium enters the cell and sodium leaves. This is how the sodium-potassium pump works. And thanks to this pump, every cell exists. In other words, you could call the sodium-potassium pump the heart of our cell. So imagine that for our heart to function well, we need a large amount of potassium. If a condition called hypokalemia occurs, there are serious problems with the heart muscle. What I would recommend for every person on planet Earth to drink is Astragalus membranaceus. The problem is there just isn't enough for everyone. And not just any Astragalus, but specifically the root of Astragalus membranaceus. In 2009, a group of American scientists received the Nobel Prize for discovering an enzyme called telomerase. Now I'll explain what that is. Telomeres are these protective caps located at the very ends of DNA chromosomes, which gradually become shorter and shorter each time the cell divides. Consequently, the cell has a predetermined biological lifespan, meaning it can only undergo a specifically defined and limited number of divisions. The number of divisions is about 50 to 60 times, after which the cell dies because the telomere has shortened completely. You can compare it to a shoelace. You know how a shoelace has that plastic tip at the end? That's like the telomere. Look at it this way. When this tip, the telomere, gets destroyed, the shoelace starts to unravel. So, sometimes when you look at kids, you notice this too. Very often you'll see that the shoelace has completely unraveled and that's it. There's no shoelace left. And Astragalus membranaceus, the root of Astragalus membranaceus, is currently the only known substance that stimulates the production of the enzyme telomerase. And you could say it gives youth, first and foremost, it gives youth to our hearts.
Cool.
And now we move on to the most beneficial product of all. I honestly don't know if it should be classified as a tiny berry or a sweet fruit, but for our physical bodies and overall health, it is actually known as a wolfberry. Back when I was in 9th grade, in the distant 90s, we had a teacher named Jana Gennadyevna. She would tell us with such enthusiasm that there are two superfoods, avocado and kiwi, but you could tell a whole separate story just about kiwi. And then, when it came to avocado, she would describe it to us with such flavor, explaining what it contains and how it affects our bodies. So when I grew up and, after turning 20, tried it for the first time, I was surprised. What is this? It was just some tasteless stuff. But later, as an adult, my wife started making simply incredible guacamole from avocado. So if you don't like avocado on its own, and now I actually enjoy eating it plain, almost every day, try making guacamole. I think I'll write out the guacamole recipe that my wife makes and post it on my Telegram channel, so check out the link in the description below this video. So let's get started. What does avocado contain? It contains high-density lipoproteins, which are absolutely essential for building the walls of our blood vessels. It also contains fat-soluble vitamins. Can you imagine? In just one fruit, in one berry, there are acids present. fat-soluble vitamins such as A, E, and K, as well as alpha and beta carotene. It's honestly just incredible. And B vitamins, which are essential for our normal functioning, especially for our nervous system, to ensure good impulse transmission. These are B group vitamins: B1, B2, B3, B4, B6. B9 and C are also found in avocados. Just imagine, one superfood like this, eat it every day, and what's most important, it also contains potassium. Per 100 grams of the product, I believe it has 485 milligrams. The potassium content there more than covers our daily requirement, which we should consume throughout the day, and that's why avocado is called an introvert.